Richard Johnson, thanks for joining us here at Merchant Taylors. A fairly cloudy morning here for training ahead of the big game against Northants. Also pleased to be joined by Rory, Coutts, club coach. Rory, thanks for joining us. Chaps, what I really wanted to do today was have a chat about the Blast campaign, which has obviously now come to an end. A little look ahead to the 4-day stuff that we've got coming up. So I'm going to kick off with you, Jono. I think the last time we spoke, we were 0 for 9 in the campaign. Obviously finished a lot stronger. You must have been delighted, I guess, with how that all came together and the plan that you've been trying to instill all came together towards the end of the campaign.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've spoken obviously throughout the whole tournament and pre-tournament as well about what we're trying to do this year. It was tough for the first 9 games, obviously trying to put a plan into action, losing lots of games along the way, and I think maybe towards the end you started to see everything we'd worked towards starting to come together towards the back end of that tournament. It's always difficult when you're trying to change a way that you've played the game and almost come up to the modern game. And to give you examples, so I think we spoke before about our record over 15 years, averaging 4 wins a tournament, getting to 2 quarterfinals with some very good sides. So it's not necessarily the personnel, it's maybe the way that we've gone about it and the way that we play the game. And we've tried to change that culture and that identity of how we look to play. And to give you examples, you notice the aggressiveness of our batters, and when we go in and face our first ball, we're not looking to nudge it up for a single or survive that first ball. The amount of times we've scored a boundary off that first ball to put the pressure right back on the opposition. And if you look at our stats for the year, which I'll go through a little bit later on, we've lost more wickets than most sides during the innings, but we've also scored more runs than most sides at the run rate during the innings. So we are playing that risk-reward cricket at the moment where we're really on the front foot and being really positive. And on the flip side to that, with our bowling, we've tried to be more aggressive with our lengths. We've asked them to bowl at times with only 4 men outside when you could have 5 to try and create wicket-taking opportunities. So we've tried to bring the bowling along with the batting. If you look at the ages, we're obviously very inexperienced as a group, but we're more inexperienced with our bowling than we are with our batting. So that's going to take a little bit more work to get that bit right. But yeah, so far, really pleased with the way we've gone about it with the bat, and a little bit more work to do with the ball.
Absolutely. We'll talk about the ball in a minute, but I'm just going to ask Rory. I guess it's inevitable that the game evolves over time. Jono's absolutely bang right. Over 15 years, we've averaged 4 wins a season, which is going to get you nowhere. And you look at the runs that are being scored this year in the campaign, we're scoring 200 more often than ever before. That's akin with what the game is doing. Was it kind of inevitable that we had to evolve our game to keep up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think gone are the days where you can limp to a score of 150, 160 and hope you bowl a team out. You've got to try and get on the front foot early and try and aim for those big scores, because the history of the Blast shows you win 8 games in the competition, you qualify. Yep. So inevitably T20 you're going to lose some games. We've got to try and make sure we stack it in our favour, that we can win more by playing a more aggressive brand of cricket, and that means us taking it on with the bat and obviously trying to bowl teams out, as John has alluded to there a second ago with the ball. So it is inevitable, and we have to evolve, and I think we've started that process.
I suppose you look back on this campaign and you're absolutely right. You win 8 games and you're probably qualifying for the quarterfinals. We won 3 and we came damn close in another 3, and you could argue that in another couple we weren't a million miles away. So progress is clear to see.
It is. I think obviously it would have been nicer to have won those games. However, I think, as Jono will allude to in a sec, the progress shown behind the scenes with the stats, with us, I think we were fifth in terms of strike rate across the 18 counties, and we hit the third most boundary percentage. So the stats are there to back up the improvement and those scores over 200, and that's the most pleasing bit, because whether you win 3 or you win 5, you're not qualifying. We've got to try to win 8, and that's the short-term pain for the long-term game, to try and move the club forward and make us more competitive in T20 cricket.
Absolutely. I guess, Jono, one for you. What's important, of course, when you're trying to engender a new style of play and a new brand of cricket is getting the buy-in from the group, the players themselves. Every one of them I've interviewed over the course of this campaign has kind of mirrored and supported everything we're trying to achieve, and you seem to have galvanised that group despite, let's be frank, a terrible run of results. you've galvanised that group and given them real belief in what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, at the start of the tournament we spoke about changing the history almost of what we've done and trying to go in a new direction. So we've got the end goal that we're trying to achieve. Everyone wants to play a fun brand of cricket and wants to win games of cricket, so everyone sort of bought into the idea. And the tough part is when you start losing, do you panic, do you revert back, or do you keep strong with your ideas and what you think is the right way of going ahead? And so we kept pretty calm during that nine games. Look, at the end of the day, we've won 3 games.
Yeah.
You know, that's the bottom line, and that's what a lot of supporters and members will see. We'll say, well, we've averaged 4 over the last 15 years and we've won 3 this year, so we've gone backwards. Yeah. And I totally understand that that sort of questioning, but in our heads, we've actually gone forward in many of the sort of areas that we wanted to go forward in. As I said, like, I've got my iPad here today just to go through a bit of the data, and
you've come well prepared.
Yeah, I've come well prepared, yeah. So scores of 200 plus in the last 2 years previously. 2021 we only managed that once. 2022 we only managed it once. We've managed it 5 times this year. 200 run chases, again, once 2 years ago. Didn't last year. We've managed it twice this year. I won't go through it all, but things like, the run rates, overall run rates, we've gone from 8.09 2 years ago, and now we're striking at 9.53. Yeah. So there's lots of data to say that we're being more aggressive, we're scoring more runs, we're now playing a modern brand of cricket. But to do that, we've had to go back a step to hopefully now next year and moving forward with this young group, we'd now start to believe in what we're doing. And if we can hopefully add a bit more quality, a bit more experience to the group, by hopefully, if finance and everything works out, we can add a couple of T20 specialist overseas players or a domestic signing. All of a sudden, that young core that we've improved mentality-wise and the way we want to play last year, suddenly you build a couple of extra people around that, you can start competing better.
Yeah, for sure. Are we going to see, Rory, some players departing? I mean, obviously there's a need, as Jono says, to bring in specialists that can complement what we're trying to achieve. But there's a finite amount of players you can have in this squad. Obviously, finances at the club are extremely tight at the moment. Will we be expecting players to leave and others come in?
I think it's always around this time of year those difficult conversations start to happen, where inevitably, if you want to bring players in, there probably is going to be some difficult conversations for players on the other side of it. So I think we are, and we have been very clear about the long-term direction here. We do have a core group in this format that we're trying to develop and have got a number of games into over the last 2 years, and to make us that little bit more competitive, we hope to bring in some players onto the staff rather, that are going to make a difference, and that will unfortunately probably result in some players going the other way. But that long-term goal, as John alluded to, and there we've said, is on course, and I think we've made some good progress, and we want to continue that trend.
I mean, there's been plenty of times, Rory, this year where we've fielded a side without a player aged over 30 in our blast group, so we are a young group. We're learning with every game. How tough has it been? I mentioned Jono and the coaching group have managed to galvanise the side in terms of them playing towards the vision we're trying to reach. How tough has it been managing their morale and their confidence going through that tough run? And I guess for them it must have been complete vindication in everything they've been doing, coming out of the campaign with a strong finish.
Yeah. It obviously is not easy to lose games. I think the attitude the players showed through the competition, from a training perspective, from a learning perspective, was outstanding, and they were very honest as we went through it about the areas that we fell short, but also the areas they can as a result improve in. I think there also has to be some realistic view to it when they look at an opposition who have got hundreds and hundreds of T20 caps, and they're still learning. So they are aware of that. You can't obviously use these things as excuses, and we want to get better. However, there is an element of realism in there where they are learning and they're on a slightly different journey. I think Eski summed it up in the first loss to Surrey, where we're at a different point in our T20 development to a Surrey are. And they are learning. They're learning quickly, and we need to support that as coaches when we review games, when we work individually with players, and obviously they've, as I said, their attitude through the comp was brilliant. So it was a nice way to end and gave everyone a little boost at the end, and I think it puts us in a good place to start next year as a side. Not many people want to play early on.
Can
I'll give you an example of the difference in experience with the Surrey game. So the game we beat them at the Oval, they added up to 1,821 appearances in their team, averaging 165 per person. They had 7 players over 100 appearances in their team. And in comparison, we had 634 appearances, averaging 57 appearances per person. So you can see that, that's over 100 appearances difference per person in the team, and only 2 players over 100. And supporters might say, well, so what, experience? But experience is about understanding that you've been in the position before. Those close games that we lost, 3 games in single figures, more experience. They've been in that situation, they've lost the game, what will they do differently next time? And when you've been in that situation 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, you learn how to do it differently and make sure your team get over the line. So putting experience into this young group is crucial. And yes, it's also crucial to win games, because you don't want them getting used to losing games. But as Rory said, and we've said earlier, that you have a vision and a goal to what you want to get to, and everyone's fighting and pushing and trying to get better to do that.
So I'm not going to ask you to name individuals per se, but there are certain elements of the group that have clearly developed at a rapid pace. I'm not going to ask you to, but I'm going to. Max Holden, for example. Max striking the ball as well as anybody in the competition now. Your iPad can probably tell me, but I would guess he's striking at about 170, 180 even. That's a phenomenal development in terms of progress that he's made in terms of buying into that vision. Going back to what you were saying on the bowling front, I mean, I think I'm right in saying we've conceded 200 plus in the last 5, maybe even the last 6 games. Yeah. That, of course, gives us plenty of opportunity to chase big totals, which allows your batters to express themselves. But if we'd been sitting here 12 months ago and you said to me the issue we'll have is our bowling, I'd have probably laughed at you. How do you tackle that?
Well, just firstly, you say about Maxi. So Maxi 2 years ago struck at 110. Then he went to 131 last year, and he was 184 this year.
Incredible.
And just, I won't go through them all, but everybody, even Higo 2 years ago 143, last year 133, this year 156. And every single batter's data is going up on.
What's this iPad been? All these interviews we've been doing. You sound like you know what you're talking about now.
I haven't needed it before. No. So with our bowling, as I said earlier, we're very young. Last year we had 2 overseas bowlers, if you remember, for the series, which obviously improved our bowling. This year we've gone very young with our bowling attack. You think of our 2 young spinners, 21 and 19. Ethan Bamber, young. Greatwood, Harris have played, Cullen's played. These are 20-year-old kids, 22-year-old kids. And it's difficult. We're asking them also to up their game. We're asking them to be more aggressive. We're asking them to bowl a different length. And it's going to take time. And this experience this year will definitely put them in good stead for next year. And they need to improve. They know that. They need to keep working hard at their skills in the winter, and we'll work hard at that in the winter.
This will probably be a nice segue into what lies next. I'm going to kick off with you, Rory, on this one. Jono mentioned our inexperienced spinners there. Last 4-day game was down at Hampshire, transpired to be a 3-day game. Joshy De Cares obviously picked up a 7-fer in the game. Josh, in fairness, is a relatively inexperienced novice spinner. He's in the side predominantly for his batting. He made that a GS Bowl side because it was a Turner we were playing on, and duly delivered and justified that selection. But then when you look at the opposition, you look at the likes of Liam Dawson, who takes 12 in the game, that's the kind of difference we're talking about when we've got this young and inexperienced side. How tough's it going to be with the remaining, we've got 6 games left in the championship now, how tough's that running going to be? Obviously, I guess it's fair to say the ultimate aim is to maintain our Division 1 status. What challenges are you expecting over the next 6 games in 4-day cricket?
I think just to kick off, every 4-day game in Division 1's been tough this year. You're playing against some high quality sides with some high quality players. I think back to the Hampshire game was brilliant for Josh to come into the side and to make the impact that he did as you said, as a young spinner. to take on the role of not only a wicket threat, but actually to bowl the number of overs he did in the game. Yeah. He wouldn't have done that ever in his career, even when he bowled a lot of overs when he was in junior cricket in the 2 or 3 day game. But he, as you said, primarily he's been a batter who's had a second string to his bow of being an off spinner, and it's brilliant that a young lad can come in and make an impact like he did in the game. But we can't expect the same thing of him that you would do of a Liam Dawson. So I think every one of these games in this division is tough, and we've just got to go into every one of them expecting the opposition to play well and knowing that we have to play our best cricket to match them and to push for a result in the game.
Absolutely, sounds like a fair assessment. Jono, next up is Northamptonshire, obviously here next Monday. We're here training at Merchant Taylors today, albeit it's just starting to rain. We'll stick it out though, we'll get through this. What challenges are you expecting in that one? Because obviously as results come in, as we go deeper into the season, winning games like this 4-day become crucial, I guess.
Yeah, from every game from now on in is crucial. We've obviously lost and won. We haven't drawn anything, so we've got to find a way of competing better. We haven't competed as well as we should have done so far. We haven't scored as many runs as we should have done so far, and we haven't bowled as well as we should have done so far. So it's all facets, and we've got to find a way of competing in this division. I think we mentioned, or I spoke to you before about, I think that first 6 games almost came as a little bit of a shock to some of the guys. We said at the start of the season, half the guys wouldn't have played any First Division cricket, so they didn't know what to expect, and the other half have played First Division cricket, but 6 years ago. Yeah. So it's been a bit of a shock to the system about how much quality there is in the First Division. Our batters are facing Test match international bowlers most weeks, and not just 1 or 2, but they're coming from both ends all day, not giving a lot away. And we've got to work out a way of scoring and putting the pressure back on the opposition. And our bowlers are coming up against quality batters who bide their time, take their time. Second division cricket, a lot of the time is you bowl the ball in good enough areas for long enough, you will get your rewards. It's not quite the same in first division cricket. They're better batters, better quality, and we haven't competed so far, and we know that. We're well aware of that, obviously, and the players are well aware of it. And we now have to have that mentality now to fight hard for the next part of the season, and put that effort in.
As this question's about batting, I'm going to turn to you now, Rory, and not Jono. We've got one of the best coaches, in my opinion, in the game, in Mark Ramprakash, who's not Rory Coutts. He's one of. He's on the list. But in Ramps, you've got someone that has got an incredible pedigree, not only as a player but as a coach. What do we make of one batting point all season? I mean, obviously, as Jono's just alluded to, we're short of runs in that first 11. How's Ramps been working with the players? What has he been focusing on to try and turn that corner?
I think there's two bits to it. One, Ramps, and one of the things that made him very good was he had a real strong mentality in the way he approached his batting. And I think, we need our batters, as you said, to score more runs, and Jono said to score more runs. I think one of the challenges that we face from a flip side, Jono mentioned about as a bowling group, if you bowl the ball in the area enough the time in Division 2, you're going to have success. I think in Division 1, the bowlers miss less. Yeah, they're on you more and more and more, and you have to be very clear in your plans and your approach. And I think that's where Ramps and his experience and as a player, but not only as a player, as a coach, he's obviously coached England and worked with England, and it's that element that I think we need to be very, very clear on for the remaining games. Because if our mentality's right, but also we're very clear on how we're going to score our runs and how we're going to put pressure back on the bowlers, we give ourselves a better chance of getting to 250, 300, 350 more regularly, and that's what we need to get ourselves into games and for us to be more competitive from a batting perspective for the remaining part of the Division 1 season. Thanks,
Rory. Jono, whilst the focus is obviously on red ball cricket now for the next few weeks, it won't be long before we're into the 50 over stuff. We've lost a couple of players to the 100. I think I'm right in saying today the ECB are probably going to be announcing some other 100 picks from the Blast. Now the Blast is completed, I don't know whether we lose any more, it's not been announced yet. But going into the 50 over stuff, you must be pretty confident with the squad we've got. and the experience mix, because we'll obviously have some of those more experienced heads coming back in. You must be pretty confident with the squad in terms of the blend of experience and youth, and obviously looking at the way the batting has come on in white ball cricket generally.
Yeah, it's still difficult to plan for 50 over cricket because of the blast. Because of the 100, because anything can still happen. You've got injuries, you've got right up until the tournament. So yes, we've got a squad at the moment, but that might still change. So we'll leave it. We've got an idea of what we want to do, but we'll obviously have to wait and see what personnel we have coming up to that first game. But yes, you're right. We should have more of a mix, more of a sort of experience and youth, as you mentioned, because 50 over and sort of red ball cricket is a little bit more of a crossover.
Yeah.
But we still don't want to lose what we've made, sort of gained in our T20 cricket and some of our younger players' experience. 50 over cricket can help that as well. So we've got to find the right balance and make sure that some of our T20 good young players are getting their opportunity as well as some of our more experienced players.
Raw, nothing polarises or seems to polarise cricket fans more than the 100. It's a proper Marmite affair. Insofar as you as our club coach, you of course want the players to go on and perform on the biggest stages, but I suppose it must be tough really, as Jono just said. It's damn hard to plan a campaign when we're 3 weeks away and we don't even know who we've got to pick from.
It is. On the flip side, I think one of the areas we've fallen short is not having as many of our players getting exposure to franchise and to T20 cricket. And if we can up that number and get more players playing, albeit they're not around for our 50 over cricket in this instance, but the more players you can get playing those competitions, they're exposed to other different players, different conditions, different coaches. It can only benefit them and in the long run benefit the club. So there is an upside to it, albeit in this instance it does make it a bit tricky planning a 50 over campaign with very little other cricket around during that 50 over campaign, because there's no second team cricket through the 50 over competition, because most counties won't be able to get two sides out, and that's where it becomes difficult. You do have some players sitting on the sidelines during a 50 over comp when you would like them to be playing. So there is an upside, but there is also a very clear downside to it as well.
I suppose one of those significant upsides, if there are players sitting on the bench, is that I can nab them for our live stream commentary, which is a positive. So, well, gents, look, thank you.
It's better than listening to yours.
Thanks, Jono. Thanks for joining us. Was there anything else particularly you guys wanted to get across, or have we covered everything?
No, I think we've covered. As I've said all along, and people say he's banging on about the same things again, but there is something we're trying to achieve in it. It's been sort of the short-term pain, hopefully for the long-term gain, and that's the way we're looking at it. If you don't change something, you're just going to get the same of what we've had for the last 15 years. So we're really conscious of that, and we're really trying to work hard to build a side that the members and the supporters will be hopefully proud of moving forward, and we'll give some entertainment along the way, and we'll continue to try and obviously win games but get better as a team and be sustainable over a period of time. There's no point just having one good season and falling back. We want to build a team that's going to compete for the next 5, 6, 7 years, and that's the clear plan. We'll hopefully see that through.
Well, that to me sounds like a beautiful moment to end. Rory, anything to add?
No, all good. Thank you, mate.
Thanks, gents, for your time. Much appreciated, and I very much look forward to seeing you here for Northamptonshire.
Pleasure.
See you then.